All right, and again, thank you all for joining us this morning. Just wanted to go through and take a moment for us to all introduce ourselves. On the call today, we have Soretta Broadway, who will be picking up about halfway through the presentation today. Soretta Broadway is our senior regional representative with College Foundation and with the NC 529 plan. She covers the 919 area code and has been with College Foundation and the 529 plan for some time and is extremely knowledgeable. And then we have myself. I'm April Query. I'm the CFNC Regional and Community Services Manager and also work with the 529 plan. Then we have Gabby, who is the NC 529 Services Supervisor, and she is an expert on things, payroll deduction and lots of things with the 529 plan, and she will be here to also help answer any questions that you all may have this morning. So feel free to utilize the chat box as we go through. Otherwise, you're welcome to just hold your question until the end. So let's start with just some basics. Why start a 529 plan? We're going to talk about what a 529 plan is, as well as some new 529 features and some frequently asked questions. So I hope we're able to give you a lot of information today on the college savings plan. So let's start with just some basics. Why start a 529 plan, a college savings plan? Well, let's keep in mind that a lot of families will end up paying at least a portion of their children's college or another family member, depending on who you're thinking about saving for. Those college expenses vary. Of course, your students will hopefully get some scholarship dollars. They'll do their FAFSA form when they're a senior in high school, and they may be eligible for some other funds as well. But it's important to just plan on paying for, at least a portion of it. And that's a lot easier to do. That planning piece is a lot easier to do when you are able to plan ahead, which is where the 529 comes into play. It allows you to get started thinking about those expenses in the future, and we'll talk about a savings calculator that we have on our website in a few moments that will help you plan it a little better. And keep in mind, as we'll talk about, that this money can be used in a variety of different ways and at different institutions. So if you're like me, I have young children right now. I have absolutely no idea what their plans are going to be in the future, but it's very likely that it's going to include some type of post-secondary education, whether that's at a community college or a four-year school or beyond. And that 529 money that we're saving for them can be used in a variety of ways. And so we're planning for it, even though we are unsure what those plans may entail down the road. So what is a 529 plan? So we're using those numbers. So what does that mean? So essentially, the federal law allows states to develop a qualified tuition program to help families save for college. And those numbers, 529, simply refer to the section of the Internal Revenue Code created for those programs. And every plan allows participants to qualify for federal tax benefits, including North Carolina. And so it's just essentially what the 529 plan is. Every state is going to have one, and every state is a little bit different. So North Carolina's 529 plan is part of a national plan. It was created in 1996 by the North Carolina General Assembly for North Carolina, and it was established and maintained by SCAA, which is the North Carolina State Education Assistance Authority. And we at College Foundation administer it for the state. So that's a little bit different when you're thinking about a 529 plan and who you're going to get the plan through and different folks offering it perhaps. We administer it directly for the state. So what you're going to find is a lot fewer fees. You're not going to find the same, the fee plan you may find elsewhere. But at the same time, we're not really able to offer a lot of advice on the 529 plan per se in terms of where you should invest your money. We have a lot of tools and resources like the savings calculator, and we can answer all of your questions and help guide you into, whatever directions, you're interested in. And so that's a unique thing about being able to get the 529 plan directly through the state of North Carolina, essentially. So how does the 529 plan work? These are a lot of questions. We get a lot of questions about these things we're going to go over. We're going to touch on all of these bullet points individually in just a moment. But keep in mind that it's open to residents of any state. And you are direct enrolling through College Foundation, which is what I just mentioned, which means no fees or sale charges for enrolling, a little bit different of a plan. It's accessible, it's affordable, tax-free earnings on contributions, which is important, which we'll touch on, as well as it's flexible and it's very comprehensive. So let's talk about the accessible piece of it. Any adult can open an account for anyone who plans to go to college, regardless of their age or relationship. So a couple of examples. You may have a 529 plan open for your child, for all of your children, for your grandchildren, for your nieces, your nephews. Perhaps you're just really close to a neighbor. You have a godchild that you're not actually related to by blood or by law, or even for yourself. So you may be considering returning to school in the future. You know it's coming up, and you may decide to start putting a little bit of money away to help do that. So you are essentially able to save for anyone, which makes it extremely accessible. The plan is also very affordable. So remember that we said that through College Foundation, you would be doing direct enrollment, which means no enrollment fees, and you are able to open a 529 plan for as little as $25. Now, is $25 going to cover the cost of college down the road? Absolutely not. But the thing about the 529 plan that we want to make sure everyone understands is this concept of paying for college down the road may feel arbitrary. It may feel like a big hurdle, a big task. Where do I even begin to start kind of chipping away at this? And you begin with $25. So the thing I think we hear from families the most is, oh gosh, I've been meaning to do this. Oh, we just haven't sat down and done it yet. And the easiest thing for you to do is just take $25, sit down, and go ahead and open a 529 account. We'll talk about the investment options in a few moments. I think sometimes as parents, you may have trouble finding the time to really sit down and delve into this. Just get going with it. Just open it up, pick some investment options. You always have the option to change where future contributions go down the road. You can change your investment options at any time online. It's pretty quick to do. And you can increase what you are contributing at any time as well. And we'll talk about that payroll deduction piece in just a minute. So just get started with it. When you enroll with a 529 plan through College Foundation, it is a low total annual asset-based fees and expenses, and those range from 0.25% to 0.39%. So it's extremely low annual asset-based fees, and there are no extra fees at all unless you request something special, such as a courier delivery. If you want paper communication instead of electronic communication is free. If you have some outgoing wire transfers, you need something that's going to incur an extra cost on our end, that's where you would see it. But otherwise, there is absolutely no extra fees. And you can contribute however you want to. So with that payroll deduction we'll talk about in a moment, you can set that up to be perhaps $25 per payroll period. Let's just get something going. And then you can also contribute as you want to, or as family members may want to, on occasion, lump sum, automatic draft, you can do additional if you want to. You can set it up however you want to contribute additional money outside of that payroll deduction. A good example of that might be perhaps you have grandparents or parents who contribute a little bit now and then. Perhaps for birthdays, they want to contribute $25 or $50 instead of offering another toy that the child may or may not need. They can do that online. They can simply send a check-in, and so they can contribute kind of however you want to. So we talked about those lump sum contributions. That can be done through personal check. We may have some grandparents who prefer to send checks in. That's easy to do. EFT, money orders, you can transfer or roll over from another 529 account. So we do get that question sometimes. Perhaps you have a 529 account in a different state that you lived in prior to coming to North Carolina. You can roll that over to the North Carolina 529 plan. You may have a Coverdell education savings account that you want to roll over. That can be done, as well as a qualified savings bond. So let's talk a little bit about automatic contributions. You're able to contribute on your own outside of payroll deduction if you would like. You can do that once or twice a month or on a specific date that you wish to have it drafted from your account. But you also have the option for payroll deduction. And I'll say this before we forget. We do get this question sometimes. I want to participate through payroll deduction with my employer, but what if I don't work for my employer forever? Let's say a few years down the road, I leave and begin working for someone else. nothing happens to your 529 account. It's still there. It's just that the payroll deduction, how you were contributing before, ends because you're no longer, with that employer. But you're welcome to continue to contribute to your 529 plan however you'd like to. Again, nothing happens to the money. It just stays there. And if you end up working for another employer who also offers the payroll deduction option, you can enroll that way and start contributing that way as well. So it just stays with you. It's your money. It's your account. So payroll deduction for employers. So if you're on this call, chances are your employer currently offers through payroll deduction. It's pretty simple to set up. You're going to want to fill out a little bit of paperwork and communicate with your HR office. So you would have to fill out a payroll deduction authorization agreement, which your HR office can likely help you with, or you can find on the NC 529 website. It's a simple form to fill out. It's essentially just authorizing your employer to deduct whatever it is you've set up for your 529 plan. Typically, it is $25 per plan as a minimum for payroll deduction. But again, you can have that conversation with your HR office and with us, but that is typically how it works. And that's for the most part, that's going to be how you handle it. If you have any changes in the future, if you want to stop or if you want to increase your contributions, again, you would just fill out a different payroll deduction authorization agreement and then communicate with your HR office. It's pretty simple to do, and we encourage you to ask any questions that you might have, again, through the chat box or after our formal presentation ends, as well as communicate with your HR office. So the 529 plan, what are the tax-free benefits of it? So all of your account earnings are free from federal and state tax as long as it's used to pay for qualified education expenses. Again, your earnings are free from federal and North Carolina state taxes when it's used to pay for education expenses. We have the word higher in there. A lot of folks do use it for higher education expenses, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. As you'll see in a few slides, it can be used for K-12 tuition, student loans, as well as apprenticeship programs. So the 529 plan is extremely flexible with what it can be used for. And again, your initial contribution is an after-tax benefit. It is not a pre-tax benefit. It's after-tax with your initial contributions, but all of the account earnings that you have are free from taxes when it's used to pay for educational expenses. So out-of-state residents pay no federal income taxes on account earnings when it's, again, used for qualified educational expenses, but you should always check with a tax advisor regarding state taxes if you are an out-of-state resident. So as I mentioned before, the account is extremely flexible. It can be used to pay for the beneficiary's college costs. It can be used to pay for student loan payments, K-12, as well as apprenticeship programs, and we'll talk about that in just a few more minutes. But you can also change where future contributions go at any time. And so if you go ahead and just set up your 529 plan, which I encourage folks to do, if you perhaps are delaying it, or thinking you'll do it when you have time, just go ahead and set it up. And then when you do have a few moments, you can go online and you can change your future contributions at any time to how you're investing your money. And you can also reallocate current funds twice per calendar year per IRS law. So if you are putting money into a 529 plan, and you next year perhaps come and take a look at it and change your contributions and change how you're investing your money, and you feel, gosh, I really like where this is. I kind of want to keep it in this place. I like how I've invested. Well, twice per year, you can reallocate where those funds already were into different investment options, and perhaps you want to align it up to where you're putting your future money. So you have a lot of options with being able to use that. You have a lot of flexibility. And this is just an image that we wanted to add. So again, there are 6 primary ways to use your 529 funds. And this is where in just a moment I'll stop speaking and we'll have my colleague Soretta Broadway chime in and kind of start digging into some more of this information. But keep in mind that it is flexible. The money grows tax-free if it's used to pay for qualified education expenses, which includes all of the following: college expenses, which include tuition, books, fees, room and board, computer. We have an entire program description on our website I encourage you to take a look at if you want to dig into it a little further and see what all of those expenses are. There's a lot it can be used for. Trade school expenses, which go along with possible apprenticeship programs. There's a list of federal student aid. There's a list of expenses as well as apprenticeship programs. They have to be registered with the U.S. Department of Labor or state apprenticeship agency. But really, if you're thinking about programs like that, a lot of those already are. K-12 tuition can be used up to $10,000 per year, but again, Ms. Broadway will talk about that momentarily. Special needs equipment as well as student loan payments on behalf of the 529 beneficiary or their siblings, up to $10,000 per individually. So again, it is extremely flexible. If you have young children, perhaps like I do, I know there's a very good chance they are going to end up in some type of program or have some type of need that you see listed here. And our goal is simply to save, and then we'll see where their interests lie down the road as they grow. So that's my piece. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Broadway now to finish our formal presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Query. I want to say good morning to everyone and thank you for being a part of this 529 session. I'm going to go through a few more slides, and I'm sure you're feeling even more and more knowledgeable as each slide goes on. And again, as she mentioned, we're going to take those questions. As she mentioned very briefly, we have some new features, some that you may be already aware of and many people are not. But as she stated, back in January 2018, the 529 participants are able to make qualified withdrawals to pay for tuition enrollment at secondary schools as well, not just higher education. That could be elementary, middle, high school, public, private, as well as religious settings. And this was in accordance with the federal tax bill that was passed back in December 2017. And also, as she mentioned, there's a $10,000 per beneficiary per calendar year, which may be withdrawn to pay for these qualified secondary expenses. Okay. The Secure Act, the setting every community up for retirement, was signed into law on December 20th, 2019 as part of the federal year-end spending bill. The changes were applicable starting with withdrawals taken in calendar year 2019 and beyond. Every session I think I've ever done for the 529 plan, someone has asked, can you use the monies to repay student loans? And back in the day, as my sons would say, the answer was no. So when this came about, we were all very, very excited. So your 529 funds may be used now to repay student loans up to a limit, however, up to $10,000 for the 529 beneficiary. It's the lifetime maximum. Up to $10,000 for each of the 529 beneficiary siblings. That's a lifetime maximum as well. And siblings come in brothers and sisters, step brothers as well, step sisters. Participants can change their beneficiary at any time. As you know, distributions taken after December the 31st, 2018 may be used for student loan payments. So it has to be distributions that were taken after December the 31st, 2018. These are tax-free earnings of your 529 account. Used to pay student loan interest will not be eligible for the student loan interest deduction that you may be made aware of by your tax preparer when you get ready to file your income taxes. So we encourage you, of course, to contact your tax advisor to determine how using your 529 funds to repay student loans may impact you. So we also have the apprenticeship program under the Secure Act. 529 funds, as we talked about all this morning, may be used for qualified educational expenses, fees, books, supplies, required equipment, as well as secondary expenses for your beneficiary. The apprenticeship must be registered and certified with the Department of Labor. You can find the apprenticeship programs by going to apprenticeship.gov. Any distribution taken after December the 31st, 2018 may be used for apprenticeship program expenses. So that, again, check with your tax advisor to determine how this is going to impact you and your beneficiary. Investment options. And we have quite a few. Some people consider themselves to be a savvy investor. Some people consider themselves to be very conservative. So for that reason, we have a very comprehensive group of investment options that will meet a variety of needs and objectives and goals. So we're going to go through each of these, and you may choose one or more of the following. We have the federally insured deposit account, which is through the State Employees Credit Union. Here in the state of North Carolina, most of us are familiar with State Employees Credit Union. So when we hear that name, we feel very comfortable. This particular investment option is the least aggressive out of all the others. It seeks to provide income plus protection. We're having a little bit of feedback. Seeks to provide income plus protection of principal and earnings through federally deposit insurance. As I said before, it's the most conservative out of all of the others. The principal contributed and interest earned are guaranteed by the State Employees Credit Union and is insured by the National Credit Union Administration. This is the only guaranteed option out of our portfolio of investment options. This is available to members who are members and non-members of the State Employees Credit Union. So you can still participate whether you are a member of that credit union or not. We have the remaining investment options through Vanguard, and it's very similar to retirement accounts that many of us have. You choose one risk track that fits your risk tolerance. Once you select your track, your beneficiary's age will be determined, will place you in the risk track you select. So we have 3 different investment options through the age-based investment plan: the aggressive track, the moderate track, and the conservative track. So on the next slide, we're going to be able to give you a snapshot of what that's going to look like. As you can see at the very top, you have your different tracks, and on the left-hand side of this chart, you see the ages. So based upon the child's age, will determine which investment option they will be placed. But of course, you have to choose the track, and that just depends upon your taste of investing, whether you consider yourself to be a very aggressive investor or you want to play it safe and be conservative. And as the child ages, we will automatically move them to the next category. You won't have to contact us and make us aware that your child just had a birth date or have one on the horizon. It's going to automatically move them. But you can change the tracks anytime you desire to, but it will be based upon their age. So the next slide will also show as they progress and they go on to college. Believe it or not, many parents or loved ones continue to save while their child is enrolled in college. Many people think that you save just while they're K through 12th grade, but no, because those expenses continue to incur, you want to continue saving. So as that child is 19 or older, they will be moved into another category of the investment option. But again, you would determine whether you want to be in that aggressive, moderate, or conservative. And I like the fact that you have a mixture. You have stocks and you have bonds. We also have the Vanguard individual investment options, as you can see here. You have the Vanguard Aggressive Growth Portfolio, the Vanguard Growth Portfolio, the Vanguard Moderate Growth Portfolio, Vanguard Conservative Growth Portfolio, and so forth and so on. The thing I like to encourage you is go to our website and take a look at the program description in which we have. Just make sure you've had a cup of coffee or some caffeine of some sort, because it's a lot of reading, but nevertheless, you'll be able to find out what the investments are in and get more detailed information, and also be able to find out what the prospectus is on that particular investment option to see maybe between 2014 and 2020, what was the rate of return. So you can find all of this wonderful information out on CFNC's website. And as you see here, we have some additional individual investment options, such as the interest accumulation portfolio, total stock market index portfolio, total international stock index portfolio, total bond market index portfolio. So it's a lot of great diversified portfolios for you to be able to choose from. And this is just some detailed information about our 529 plan and questions that we get often. So we try to put this in a table format. Who can contribute? Anyone who is concerned or wants to invest in a loved one's education. Annual contributions, the maximum total allowable is $500,000 as of today, but that amount increases with inflation. I'm pretty sure by the end of this year, we'll be given a new maximum total amount, but as of today, the maximum one can have in account is $500,000. The account owner is the parent. I mean, not the parent, but the participant, which is typically the parent, but that could be whoever opens up the account. That is the account owner. They are the only ones that can make decisions about that account other than the successor that will be assigned to that account. Age of beneficiary for contributions, any age. Taxes on qualified withdrawals, no federal or no North Carolina income taxes. Timing of withdrawals, whenever the beneficiary is getting ready to go to college or when they're going to be needing those expenses to cover any of their K-2 through 12. Income restrictions, the adjusted gross income limits, we don't have any of those either on North Carolina's 529 plan. Administered by the North Carolina Treasurer, NC Able. The North Carolina Treasurer's Office administers a new type of 529 account. In addition, it's called the 529A, which allows people with disabilities to save and their family members and friends or whoever wants to contribute. But the 529 is solely for qualified education expenses. The 529A account is not just for educational expenses. In addition, it allows people with disabilities to save for qualified disability expenses. For example, funds in a 529A can be used to defray some of the disability-related costs, such as additional medical costs not covered by Medicaid. If you would like to receive more information, please visit nc.savewithable.com. Participants also may roll their assets from an NC 529 plan account into an ABLE account used to pay for qualified disability expenses of a designated beneficiary. There is a limit, however. There's a $15,000 per calendar year, which are reduced by any other contributions made to that ABLE account during the year as well. We also have enhanced our savings calculator. I highly recommend you to take advantage of it. It allows you to get the projected costs that will be tied to your loved one for you to be able to pay for their expenses, whether it's for secondary or post-secondary education. But in this, the example I would like to use here is that you're planning for your child's post-secondary expenses and you're trying to determine how much do I need to save if I want to reach a goal of XYZ. So you can plug in the child's birth date or the loved one's birth date, whether or not you anticipate them attending a 2-year, 4-year, public, private, in-state, out-of-state college, and we will be or institution, and we will be able to tell you how much money you'll need to save on a monthly basis in order to come close to that cost that you are trying to reach, that goal that you have set in mind. So I encourage you to be having a seat when you use that wonderful calculator, because it may surprise you as to how much you may need to save on a monthly basis. But we just encourage you to save as much as you possibly can. But the main thing is to save. You may not be able to save enough to cover the full cost for 4 or 5 consecutive years, but you will be able to save some money so that you may not have to borrow as much or depend upon financial aid as much. Okay. How are 529 plans reported on the free application of federal student aid, better known as the FAFSA? 529 funds may be considered an investment or an asset on the FAFSA form. Qualified educational benefits or education savings account, for example, the Coverdale Education Savings Account, and the refund value of the 529 prepaid tuition plans may be considered a parental asset, which are treated differently depending on who owns the plan. But as I said earlier, the 529 plan is a parental asset of the participant, the one that opens up the account. They are the account owner, not the student. Okay. If the 529 owned by the student or parents reduces need-based aid by a maximum of 5.64% of total asset value. So that's what we would be looking at with the 529, as it is owned by the parent of the student. If it's owned by an independent student, it reduces need-based aid by a maximum of 20% of total asset value. Also, we have a lot of grandparents who invest in the 529 account, but if it's owned by grandparents or others, it's not counted as an asset on the FAFSA, but withdrawals count as untaxed student income for the following FAFSA filing year, which may reduce need-based aid by 50% of the withdrawal amount. So those are some things to keep in mind as well when preparing to apply for financial aid. Benefits for employees. Employers offering the NC 529 as a benefit. No enrollment fees or sale charges to open an account. As Dr. Query mentioned earlier, low minimum contribution of just $25 via payroll deduction. Multiple contribution methods. As we stated earlier, you can have them deducted through your payroll, or you can have the funds electronically withdrawn, money order or a check or what have you. Age-based portfolios and individual fund investment options. We talked about the different tracks. Account earnings are free from federal and North Carolina income taxes when used to pay for qualified education expenses. Savings, as we talked about, those new features can be used at eligible college or university virtually anywhere. In addition to K-12 tuition, student loans, and apprenticeships programs. Other college planning tools are available and free of charge as well. If you go to CFNC's website, you'll be able to take advantage of all of our other resources, plan, apply, and pay for college. Online access at the nc529.org. All of your information is going to be available at your fingertips. You can easily enroll online. You can change your account information anytime you want. Account maintenance can be done online. We have a wonderful Q&A section, which I highly recommend. Even if you have an account already, if you're considering opening up an account in the future, it'll give you a better understanding of how the program actually works. And I've already highlighted our wonderful savings calculator that I hope you take advantage of. We do have representatives available to answer your questions Monday through Thursday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 8 to 5 on Friday at our toll-free number, 1-800-600-3453, or you can contact us on our local line at 919-828-4904, where our office is located in Raleigh, North Carolina. This concludes what we wanted to share with you about the 529 plan. Of course, we want you to start an enrollment today if you have not already. Sometimes we put things off saying we're going to do that and we're going to do that. And before we know it, our child is a senior in high school getting ready to turn that tassel. So the earlier you start investing in their education, the more time you have to save, and you can start investing a little bit more aggressive the earlier you start versus starting later. But nevertheless, the key point is to start saving for your child's future or loved one. I'm now going to turn this back over to Dr. Query, and she and I and Miss Gabby will be entertaining any questions that you may have. If you did not put them in the chat, feel free if you would like to ask them verbally, but if not, you can also put them in the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Broadway. I hope you all were able to receive a lot of good information today that you are able to take in for yourself and then possibly also share with other folks in your office. If you have any questions, you're welcome to shoot them over in the chat box, or you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask any questions, and we'll give you just a moment to do that. And then I think we may ask Gabby to perhaps offer any other thoughts and tidbits she thinks perhaps we should add before we end today's webinar. So any questions from the participants? So it looks like we have a question. This is a great question. What happens to funds if I move to a different state or country? So let's take the first question there. So I'll just offer an answer, and then Soretta or Gabby, you're welcome to add on to it. It stays put, so your 529 plan pretty much just stays put for a long time. We do have some folks that contribute for a while and then stop contributing for a few years. You may get some emails or letters reminding you that there's a 529 plan sitting out there. We do have folks that perhaps let it sit for a while, but nothing happens to it. You're welcome to use it, but nothing is going to happen to the account. Soretta or Gabby, did you have anything to add to the question? Again, the question is what happens to the fund if I move to a different state or country?
Sure, I'd be happy to jump in on that. Yeah, so basically, you can remain in the North Carolina 529 plan regardless of where you reside or where the beneficiary resides. The program is valid nationwide, and qualified higher education expenses can be applied to some foreign schools as well. So we have lots of participants who do not reside in the country. They reside overseas, or their student resides or goes to school overseas or maybe in Canada. And they are all still eligible participants in the program.
Thank you. And we have a second question that's come in, which might be a little trickier because all of the plans are different. But do we have some information we can offer beyond just kind of sending you to the website? Average rate of return on a 529 plan over the last 5 or 10 years?
We do not, because it really depends upon the investment selections that you make. But if you do go to the CFNC website, and you navigate to the performance or the investment page, it does give you the annualized rates of returns by investment for like a 3-month, quarterly, yearly, 3-year, 5-year, 10-year annualized rate of returns are all there for the respective investment options.
Thank you. So I'll wait just a moment and see if anyone has any other questions they want to send over in the chat box. And then in the meantime, was there anything, Gabby or Soretta, that we think we left off that we wanted to touch on?
I think we covered everything. Gabby may have something else that she would like to add.
The only thing that I like to point out to people is that it really does only take $25 to get started and no additional commitment. So no additional regular contribution is required for you to keep the account. Of course, we encourage you to save on a regular basis, but it's not required. So when you sign up and you do an enrollment, just that initial $25 is what it takes to get started. And then you can come back and contribute at a later date when you're able to and save on a regular basis. But when you sign up, you're not committed to giving a certain amount every month or a certain amount from your payroll every month. It's just $25 to get started, and then you can contribute as you're able to contribute. So sometimes people think that once they enroll, then they have to commit to giving a certain amount each month, and that just isn't the case.
That's a really good point.
The other thing that I like to point out to people about the program is that a lot of folks say, what if my beneficiary doesn't go to college? Or what if my beneficiary gets a scholarship? What happens to the money? The money is still under the participant's control and purview, and there's a number of things you can do if it's not used for the specified beneficiary. You can replace the beneficiary with that of a relative and use it for their expenses. You can transfer the money to another participant or another beneficiary in the program. You can even liquidate the account, but you need to know that there's tax implications associated with an account liquidation for non-qualified reasons.
Thank you so much. And those are some more frequently asked questions. And just piggyback on what Gabby said, when you contribute that initial $25, it does all go into your account. So it's not like, you know, $20 of it goes into fees and $5 goes into your account. It's all directly going into your 529 account. It's just that's the minimum to open it. So, well, I just want to thank both Soretta and Gabby for taking the time to be a part of this today and offering the information, as well as everyone who was able to join us today. Please feel free to follow up with us if you have any questions at all. I'll make sure my email address is in the chat box, even though it was, I think, in an earlier slide. If you guys have any follow-up questions, feel free to let us know. And we thank you all so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, and have a good day.
Thank you. Have a great day.